Okay. It is
Okay,
being
thank you very
recorded.
much.
Sure.
All right, so in standing reports, we have an enrollment report.
Correct. So 2A in your packet shows the enrollment report. And the good news is we are holding at our same number as the prior month of 658 students.
All right. On to miscellaneous correspondence. There was none in the packet, so I'm assuming there is none.
Correct.
And I see our student representative is here, so I'm going to open the floor to Odie Fields.
Great.
Thank you so much, Jane. So last time I was here, we talked about, or I talked about how difficult it was to get in contact with some of my classmates. And so I did some brainstorming and realized I have a lot of them in my contacts. So I spent today and a couple days ago calling them and just asking them how their school experience was so I could gather some more information for you guys. And so, you know, I talked to a lot of them. So just as a consensus, the people I really don't have a lot of contact with is the fully remote, because I'm hybrid, and that means I'm in school on Thursdays and Fridays. And there's another group, another cohort that goes Mondays and Tuesdays. So I talked to these fully remote people, and I think they're finding online school not as engaging as it was at the beginning of the year, kind of, and a lot of them are feeling like they're going to transition, or hope to transition into being in person, just because there's a loss of communication. And I guess the real reason they're switching is they're missing communicating with their teachers. So those little conversations you have between students and teachers before and after class, and then obviously talking with friends. I think they're missing that, and they're feeling like that was such a great part of school, and so they're trying to tap back into there. And then they're also finding just communication overall, but just online with their internet, and then teachers struggling with technology, and then having the teachers have to balance in person and remote. And so overall, I think the consensus I got from the people I don't really talk to is they're looking for an alternative to the situation they're having now. On a different note, we just switched to our the second half of the year, so students are having new classes, so they're getting a different part of their different schedule. And so the people I talked with are really excited for the new classes they're taking, kind of switching up as the seasons begin to change. And so, yeah, that was what I caught in my net this week.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Odie. Does anybody have a particular question? I see hands up. I don't know the order of the hands going up, so.
I think it was Dennis and Bonnie, but really
Yeah, well,
close tie.
Yeah, okay, so Dennis is in my top corner, so, and
Yes.
then, so we'll go Dennis and then Bonnie.
Yeah, I just had a question is Odie still there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Odie, what's I think what I heard you say was that, you know, remote is bad enough, but hybrid, you know, they're getting burned down on hybrid.
No, so partially, I think.
Enough to.
So I think there's a little bit of a delay. From what I got from your question is, the people in hybrid are really loving the experiences they're having with their teachers. So talking in person and not having to be separated by the screen. And so people who decided to be fully remote at the beginning of the year are finding that as much fun as that is to kind of be in your own house, and you've got the luxury of being able to move around and be all over your house, they're losing the in-person contact. And so I think overall, I think there might be a wave of students wanting to rejoin hybrid schedules.
Bonnie?
Yes, Odie, thanks for doing that research with your comrades there. Not in a political sense, but my question is, did you happen to ask any of them whether they had discussed this with their parents, and whether their parents are supporting them going to hybrid until we could do fully in person?
I didn't. The parents never entered the conversation. They they never gave whether their parents were supportive or not. I assume they were. And I think if that was a problem, they would probably say like, well, my parents don't feel comfortable. I think it's honestly just the decision was based off of the how easy it is to be at home versus going to school. I think so, and because that opinion changed, that's really what's leading the effort to move over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other hands. I really appreciate the time and effort you put in, and it's so helpful to the school committee to have that contact with the student body, so thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
I see some names up here who seem to be part of the public, and this is the time for public comment on any of the items that we have on our agenda. So if you have the raise hand function, can you raise your hand if you would like to speak? Okay. Can you pronounce your name for me?
Alina,
Hi, Alina.
hi.
Welcome.
I'm from Egremont, and I just wanted to thank you for the work you're doing on anti-racism and anti-bias. And that was my driving interest in attending tonight. So thank you.
We're so happy that you're here to participate with us on this topic that's very high on our agenda for the year and going forward. So thank you for coming. All right, I don't see any other public comment. So I'm welcoming Dr. Amy Lynn tonight. So great to have you.
You're muted. There you go.
Good. Thank you, Jane. It's good to be here. So I've just kind of three components that I want to mention tonight. The district did have our Anti-Defamation League professional development at the end of January. It went wonderfully well. It was really one of the best sessions I've personally attended. I can speak for myself there. We do want them to come back, and they are possibly going to do some work at just the admin level, as well as even maybe do a presentation with school committee, from what I understand. Those details are still being worked out, but we have secured them to come back in April for our half-day afternoon PD, and we're really looking forward to continuing the session with them. We also launched our first PLC in culturally responsive pedagogy, and that began in January as well, right around the same time, near the end of January. That's going beautifully well. And we will have a second PLC launching in March, right on the heels of this one. So that's the pieces I want to mention about professional development. The math program, as you know, Julie Dolan has been working on that, and she has had program reviews of several different companies that have come and shared their materials, and that is still, some sort of selection should be happening near the end of the year. And then the third piece is the curriculum committee's work. So we are continuing to meet every month, and we have developed a text inventory tool based from guidance from the state. And just to put some parameters around how we're going to use that tool first, is we're working with the committee to understand the tool and to be able to apply the tool. People were very responsive when we shared the first draft of the tool. We're continuing to do that work now. And the books that we're looking at first are text K-12 that we know people repeatedly use in the district. So we're not asking people, and specific to ELA. So while there's many more books than that and many more texts than that the district uses, we're looking first at ELA, and we're looking at texts that teachers use repeatedly year after year. So like any curriculum, there are some fluid aspects where different articles might get recently published, and a teacher might bring those in and want to share those with kids, current events on a popular kind of online curriculum, News ELA. So there are people who are using that tool as well. So there's fluid aspects, but we're looking at those ones that we know are tried and true that educators keep coming back to. And we're looking at things like, I don't know if Beth, you want me to share the tool, I can do that. I don't have access to, oh, I do have access to screen share. Nope, I'm disabled from
Yes.
screen sharing.
Well, it's up to you. I don't know if you need to share it or if you want to put it in as a link in the chat, or we can send it after.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that.
I can talk you through it. So the components that we're looking at are things like original, the publication of the original work. So is this something that was published earlier that might be a primary source, or is it something that's more current and in the 20th century? So we want to know things like that. Are we hitting different genres? So some of those basic ELA things that we would want to know. And then we look at more of the diversity aspect. So what is the race of the main character? And there's items they can select from, or they can choose other and fill it in if one isn't included. We look at ethnicity of the main character, race of the author, if that's known, ethnicity of the author, gender identity of the main character. If LGBTQ status is mentioned in the book, particularly at the upper reading levels, then we want to know that as well. What groups are we presenting in the literature there? Is there a religious affiliation of the main character that's mentioned in the book? What's the socioeconomic status of the main character? Is there a disability of the main character? And then the last question is around family status. So is this a child in a foster family, adoptive parents, single parents, multi-generational family? So those are the areas that we're looking at right now to kind of get a feel for what kind of diverse identities are we showing in the literature that kids are reading. And we know that they're all reading consistently year after, mostly year after year in our district, so that we can make some decisions about that. And that is pretty much it. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Great.
Any questions for Amy Lynn? I see Jeff, then
Bonnie,
Bonnie,
Janice, Hannah.
And Hannah, then Janice.
Thank you, Dr. Len, for going through that. And it's encouraging to see that. And I'm happy to hear that the ADL training was really good from your perspective. Just really quickly, we were talking about different representations and whatnot. I'm just wondering, are we looking also at people of certain abilities and characters in the literature that we're looking at? People from a disabled background or anything? Just, is that part of the
Disability
process?
status is one of the categories I mentioned. Yep.
Oh, it was, okay, I just missed it. Thanks.
Bonnie?
Thank you for doing this. This is really great. Couple of questions. One, who's on the curriculum committee?
I'm happy to send you a list, but I wouldn't want to try to roll that off the top of my tongue here. Honestly, Bonnie, because I would feel terrible if I left somebody out accidentally. So I don't have a list right in front of me. I can tell you that they span the grade levels. They span, we have representative from special education. We have representative from special area classrooms, and a range, early childhood as well as middle elementary, middle school, and high school. Would I like to see more people? Yes. One of the things that we're going to do though with this committee is they're networkers, right? So they will have, we're going to be talking later this month when we meet next week about how they might approach, the department head to share the inventory tool at ELA department meetings and start to network that way.
Great. That's the second part of the question is, have you come across, or has the committee come across any texts that have been red flagged as yet?
Not yet. We're still collecting the data. We're just at the beginning of that. And one part about the curriculum committee's work that I didn't mention is know that while we're doing this, right, and we're trying to accomplish this task, we're also building capacity for a full cycle of curriculum review, which I talked about last June. So we're talking about some critical practices in curriculum and instruction, things like, universal design for learning, and how are we approaching our curriculum design and our instruction from a universal design for learning perspective, which speaks to that idea of all abilities, all levels, all kids, all cultures. How are we doing that? All interest areas. So there's a lot of work to do there. So we're trying to build capacity around that while simultaneously having this product for the school committee that we know is also really valuable, and they both kind of feed off of each other. So it feels like slow movement. It's because we're doing a lot all at once.
And it hasn't been done. So I commend you on that. The third part of my question is, at what point do you think you will be able to go beyond ELA to other subject areas? Because obviously, as a social studies person, I know that that is an issue, that you've raised certain things that are definitely issues in high school social studies texts.
Right. I think probably my vision where that might happen, and I think that I know not speak for Beth, but I know the support of writing curriculum and starting to develop curriculum together, and has worked with the union to negotiate the possibility of that moving forward. So that will be another sort of ball in the air as we start to do this work that will speak to what you're talking about. At the same time, it won't be the only ball in the air, because I think this text inventory tool is such a great, quick way of getting this information that I think that would be, by my choice, the next content area to move on to, inventorying our major texts for social studies, because I think probably we have some work to do there. And we need to be thoughtful about that. I know teachers on an individual level have spoken to me over the couple of years that I've been with the district. And I know individually people are trying to be very thoughtful about that. But there may be, it wouldn't surprise me, because it happens in every district, that there are some dated books and some things that people need access to. And we would need to start to prioritize, what do we need to purchase next, and what kind of sets of books do we need to get access to for teachers.
And this is the last part of it. Given the guidelines you've developed, are the department heads and the principals now using those for any purchases they'll be making in the coming year?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer the question right now, because I don't know what purchases have been decided on. I think that's all being, looked at and thought about, and all of the data that we would collect would absolutely be something, I'm always having conversations at admin team with the principals and keeping them up to date. So once we have more information, I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to use it. I'm sure that they would.
Okay, Janice, then Hannah, then Carrie Ann, then Dennis.
Amy, thank you. I have maybe this is not an easy question, but during the ADL training, were people able to really, I don't know how to phrase it, be honest if they had certain concerns? Did the environment created allow for real discussion about difficult feelings in this area? Did you feel that? I mean, it's putting you on the spot, but did you feel that it was possible?
I am comfortable speaking from my I voice, right? I can tell you, and thank you for recognizing that. I cannot claim to speak for everybody in the district, and I wouldn't try to. From my perspective, and I've worked with professional development throughout my whole career, from my perspective, yes, I saw strategies and techniques being used by the two presenters that created an environment that allowed people to say some things that kind of made you go, wow, oh, that's how you feel? I didn't know that, right? And kind of as an observer, I thought this is pretty unbelievable, because to be on Zoom and to be able to create an environment where people could feel safe enough saying, I'm not sure I believe that, and bring those conversations to the surface, to me, that's astounding. That was truly a gift of the two presenters who came here. That was nothing that I did or any individual person did. It was the presenters that made that possible. So does that partially answers your question?
Yes, it does.
Yes, right? Our faculty are bold enough to be able to say, where they're grappling with these ideas.
Exactly. Comfortable enough.
And also then there was the small group piece that occurred after the lunch break, which allowed even more intimate groups of faculty and staff all across the district. They were paired, there was no set, it was random, let's say that, it's put together. And that's where they came up with a bunch of discussion points. And that's where it came out that we wanted to continue this work. And that's what we were hoping for. And when I said to the committee, we're looking for the organic response for people to first understand their biases and form a basis for ongoing work. And that all happened in that session. So I think that's what we are, and we're honoring their request by continuing on with the work in April.
Thank you so much for adding that, Beth. And I want to wordsmith. I said bold and you said comfortable. I'm going to go with courageous, right? So if you read Brene Brown, she talks about courageous conversations, and that's what these have to be. And it was impressive to see our faculty members being so courageous.
That's a good word.
Great. Hannah?
Hi, thanks, Amy. I just had a question about the text review. I appreciate that you were talking about just looking through to make sure that there's representation of a lot of identities. I was wondering if the tool or what you're doing to look at that, or if you're taking into account if the author matches the identity of the main character, so that we're not just adding text that represent different identities presented by like all white, straight male authors.
Right. So that's a great question. I'm actually writing that down. So you don't have the tool in front of you, and I rolled it off really quickly. So that's a fair question. But the tool looks at the main character and the author. So the identity roles of both of those. There are times when we don't know. We might not know. It might not be mentioned. So there's room for them to say, I don't know. And the curriculum committee may need to dig into that. But I think your point is exactly the reason why when DESE gave this guidance, they wanted us to look at the author as well, and not just take for granted that if the author's writing from a certain perspective, that therefore they must also share that perspective or know that identity intimately, because they might not, right? And I think your point is very relevant, and I don't want to lose sight of that. So I appreciate those questions. Keep them coming, because one of the things that ADL said, and I am humbled by this, and I want to maintain this open communication with all of you, is I don't have all the answers, and I'm going to make mistakes. And I'm not, and there might be times when I share a tool like this, or I share the data with you, and you see a hole in that data. And I want you to feel comfortable telling me, and I want to feel comfortable saying, yeah, I could do better than that. Let me take it back and get what you need. So thank you for that. And together we'll get it as best as it can be.
Carrie Ann?
Thank you, Amy, for all this really great information. If it would be possible for you to send us a link to the tool, that would be great, just to be able to have an opportunity to look at it. And I appreciate the acknowledgement that, getting it right can't be a barrier to doing the work, and that that's like the opportunity to be uncomfortable and to keep going. So thank you for acknowledging that. And then I'm wondering, can you speak to, were all the staff required to do this, the training that you talked about? And if not, what was the turnout like?
So I will say what my piece on that, but then I'm going to defer as far as the turnout. If there were people missing, that might be something that Beth can speak to. But I have to say, before I turn that to Beth, it's amazing to work for a superintendent who made this happen for everybody. Throughout my career, I've been highly engaged in this aspect of the work, even as a first-year teacher, and having a school leader or a district leader who makes a point of inviting everybody. She invited school committee, she invited people who are driving the bus, she invited everyone to be there. That is rare and special in my opinion. So I want to say that first. There were some people who I think did not make it. Beth, do you want to say anything else about that?
Well, we have our normal, you know, things happen and life happens, and people couldn't make it, but they are able to attend other sessions, and we'll make whatever trainings available. But other than that, it was mandatory. Basically, we all felt it was critically important, and we gave people as much notice as possible so they could be there. And I think for the most part, we had a terrific turnout. There were very few who missed it.
Dennis?
What, no,
Oh, you're muted. Oh,
was that a Dennis or a Janice?
That is a Dennis Sears.
Oh, okay. Amy, just a quick question for you. What you kind of put in my mind is that we have a number of people on the school committee who basically have strengths, I think, because of their backgrounds in different things dealing with the curricula. I'm obviously not one of them, but I just wanted to float the question of would it be of value to you? I know it would be value perhaps to the rest of the school committee if there were some participation by one or more of the school committee members in that group. What do you think?
I think that is a decision that should be made at the admin table and by my leader, the superintendent. And I am, I'm kind of speechless because I'm not sure what the right answer is to that, Janice. So I'm going to defer to the person who was paid to make those decisions.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Yeah, this is such a great role. No. So are you saying just to participate in the group as with the admin team like you joined us that day because you had availability, Dennis, right? But it was open to everybody, but some people, are unable to attend during a work day, which I understand. So that was part of the reason I think the school committee, as part of your action plan, was going to experience the same training, not at the same time because of that. But you're welcome to do whatever works for people's schedule. Is that what you meant?
I'm not sure what I meant other than I know nothing about curriculum. Okay. My concept of curriculum was when I was trying to graduate from college that I sat next to the A++.
Oh, you mean the curriculum?
Because I had to pass German to graduate.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you were talking about curriculum work. So there's two levels is the way I look at it, right? There's the curriculum work that is done by the faculty and staff who oftentimes either have a stipend or do work as part of their role. We have curriculum leaders, department heads, those groups. Those are the people that are participating in doing operational work every day. And then we have our version of kind of an ad hoc curriculum committee at the school committee level where we share those big things going on and have dialogue back and forth so that you as school committee members can help be a support with initiatives or funding for items based on, the areas of, I don't like to use the word control, but the areas that you're focused on as school committee members managing the district. So that's how I look at it. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense to me, Beth. And I was, as you're talking, I was just thinking it's really important for teachers to have an opportunity to come together as a community with an internal community doing this work. But I do want you to know that any school committee member or any member of the public is welcome to send me an email, set up a time to talk to me if they have questions or insights about the curriculum. I don't mean to single any one person out, but I know Bonnie has shared some information. In fact, she's one of the people who thought of talking about the text inventory and looking at text. So I'm more than happy to have that information or have dialogue about that. But I agree with you, Beth. I think it's really important for the faculty, for the curriculum committee to have an opportunity to meet together as an internal group of teachers.
And Jeff, this is a short second question.
Yeah, it is. I just wanted clarification around the ADL training, because my understanding is that the adults who take the training is really not only to identify their own biases, but to support the work that the kids are going to do. That's going to be student-led and leadership-led. So my hope is that even if, as quickly as possible, that we can get all the adults that missed out on that training to do the training for whatever reason that they missed it. But I think it will support the children's work in it. Thank you for letting me have a comment.
This has been terrific, a great discussion. It so dovetails with the work that's really important to the school committee. So really appreciate the time that we put into this tonight with you, Amy, and other members of the school committee getting their questions answered. We're going to go on to the business manager's report, which I fear won't be as much fun, but let's get it done.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Good evening, everyone. I have 2 items tonight to present to you. The first is the warrants report. We have 5 warrants on the report. Most of them are well, some of them are fairly small anyway. We have 2 P-card warrants, both from November and December. The November one is for $17,000. Most of it was to purchase Chromebooks and air purifiers for the classrooms. The December P-card of $13,000, more Chromebooks, some iPads. The OWL for Zoom meetings was in there. Again, relatively small purchases. The one from January 22nd for around $80,000. That was, we spent about $28,000 on heating oil. We had some tuition bills in there, some boiler repairs. The February 1st one for $299,000. That's basically all health and dental expense. The $237,000 on the report was the portion that the district pays. There was another about $60,000 or so that was the employee portion of that we pulled from the employees' paychecks, and then we paid that as well. And the final warrant for $112,000. Basically, the majority of it was the MTRS payment for the teacher's retirement, $56,000. Then we had a few other items, some sped tuition, more heating oil, a plow and salt spreader, and the business services contract for $7,800. So, not really much in terms of anything unique in this particular period, but I can answer any questions anybody might have on this.
I don't see any hands up at the present time. So
I move to accept the warrants for the listed in the February 18th, 2021 agenda packet for Sunday.
Jeffrey,
Second.
second from Dennis Sears. I see Carrie Ann's hand up.
Chris, could you just tell me what a P card is, please?
It's basically like a district credit card.
Okay, thank you.
However, the exciting part about it is you get kind of a cash back bonus for using it, which is the reason districts use it, right? So you put all your expenses on, it's not a huge amount, but you do get some funding back, which is why we use those as opposed to credit cards.
Yeah, we get a few $100s a year from it.
It's not a money-making industry. However, we'll take anything we can get. That's how I look at it.
Okay, so I'll have a roll call vote for this warrant. Carrie Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Sears, Art,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Bonnie. You're muted, Bonnie. I'll come back to you, Hannah.
Yes.
Danil,
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Bonnie, are you having trouble unmuting?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
she
is
is
that
a
the
thumbs
yes?
up. Yeah.
Okay, and yes from me, okay. I got you, Jeffrey? Okay, on to the next items.
Okay, the next item is a gift that we received from Alliance Energy, who own the South Main Street Mobile Station in Great Barrington. They gave $500 to fund improvements to STEM programs. And I am just looking for your approval to accept that.
Do I have a
So moved.
motion? Was
I
that Dennis
move,
Sears? Who moved
I
it?
move to accept the gifts from
Oh,
Alliance
Jeffrey.
Energy.
Okay, a second
Second.
from Art Pataki. Any discussion? Besides, thank you very much to Alliance Energy. That's a wonderful gift. And now we'll do a roll call vote. Carrie Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Dennis Sears,
Yes.
Art,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Danil,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Jane, yes. And the last item are grants.
We have no grants to approve. It was just that one gift.
The packet says,
The packet has a whole list of grants. What does that mean?
Those were already approved in December.
Well, that's wonderful. On we go. Okay. New business. Let's look at the school calendar.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to follow up, as I told you when we first put it in the packet, it was for everyone's review. I also share it with the SBREA and get their feedback, and they have requested to do what is traditional as the 3-4-5 start. So instead of starting on the 23rd, 24th, which is what I had originally proposed, they would prefer going with the 30th and the 31st, so that professional development would start that day. There would be 3 days of students in school, and then Labor Day, followed by 4 days, and then the a full week. So that's a very traditional ask, and that was their only comment on the calendar.
Anybody have any questions of Beth on this before we vote? Are you trying to put your hand up, Janice?
Yes.
You did it.
I did it.
Okay.
This is in keeping with, all the work that we're doing about anti-bias and so on. And we're still calling Columbus Day, Columbus Day.
Very good point, Janice. Who gets to decide that?
The typist.
Well, I mean, I don't think we should comment on something. The point is, if we want to make a change to that, we can have a meeting and have a discussion and make a change to it. Right now, it was traditionally like that. And so let's have that conversation.
Okay, but not tonight.
Right. It's not on the agenda, so put it on.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And Jeffrey,
And there's a typo.
Where's the typo?
May.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for catching that. Yes, thank you.
okay, now, Jeffrey.
in terms of PD and asking for it, are we doing additional PD like we did last year to get ready for like we knew that there was going to be COVID accommodations, like given like we're having kids coming back where like social emotional needs are going to be really probably heightened this year coming back to school in the fall. Like, is there something that's going to be done with the extra PD time that we already know by pushing it up?
No, we have nothing indicated from the state yet. So that was a state-driven change that took us from 180 days to 170 days and gave us those 10 days up front, required to be up front for professional development. So this is what we have negotiated into our current contracts. We have three additional days. We have a 183, I believe, for teachers and a 181 for our ESPs and other staff. So that's what we have currently to work with in our bargaining contracts.
What is a 181 and a 183? Just
The 180 days of school. So there's
Oh,
three
got it.
professional development days for teachers and then one for the ESPs.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Sure.
Seeing no other hands up, I'll take a motion to accept the calendar as presented.
So
As
moved.
amended.
Okay, so we got Art
Second.
and second from Jeffrey.
As amended by the typo.
Yeah,
Excuse me, what's the typo?
It's in May, I think Memorial, I think it's,
Memorials apostrophe S.
yeah.
it says.
Overhead light on.
okay. All right. Carrie Ann, do you have a question? Go ahead.
So given the point that Janice brought up about Columbus Day and us creating space potentially in a future agenda item to talk about that, it feels, are we able to vote on this without that? Or just like us voting on this, then mean?
Well, are you talking about eliminating the day or changing what it's called?
Changing what it's called.
Okay, so I think you could vote on this because that won't, you're not talking about not celebrating, you're talking about not celebrating or having that day be a day off. You're talking about changing what we call
To Indigenous Peoples Day.
Correct, something like that, but you're not talking about taking it away is the difference. That's all I'm saying.
Correct.
So I think you could vote on it and then have that discussion and make the formal change.
Yeah, I think this isn't widely distributed until later in the year, so it's not like it's printed permanently somewhere. We can easily change it if the district decides they want to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jeffrey?
Could I make a request that we get this on next meeting's agenda? The item of discussing Columbus Day,
Okay,
the naming of Columbus Day on our calendar.
I will put that as future agenda item.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, roll call vote. Carrie Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Dennis Sears,
Yes,
Art,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Danil?
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Jane, yes. All right, been accepted. Now we have, I would assume, I see here Josh King. Are you going to present about the fall sports for us?
Or I think Mr. Carpenter was gonna
I'm gonna-
lead.
Oh, sorry, I keep, well, you are a sports guy, but I think of you as the principal.
No, that's my current job title, yeah. But I thought we'd do it the same way that I would start. Josh was unable to be here last time because he was preparing for what we were gonna try to do in the winter. But no games or practices tonight, so he could be here. So we're coming back to you again to ask if we can move forward with the next athletic season. The winter season so far has been very successful. We have about 30 kids in grades 7 through 12 participating in basketball. I think we're 7 games into the season. We got about 3 weeks left with another 8 to 10 games. There's a couple of high schools who did not participate to start the season who are coming on late now. So we were able to get a couple other games. The next season is the fall 2, which is primarily for the sports that were not played in the fall from the MIA level. And so what we're asking for is the ability to have the soccer season for both boys and girls, and to have volleyball. The soccer season would look a lot like the soccer season we had in the fall, which was run through the youth program with very limited fans since we'll be outdoors. At the youth level, they did 1 fan per kid, either the mother or the father. There is some talk that now that the ECC has changed its guidelines, that they might allow 2 fans, mom and dad, and then a child, younger children. So the Berkshire County ADs haven't really discussed what that looks like yet, but I think we'd be comfortable with 1 parent or 2 parents there. We have enough space that we can distance effectively to make that happen. Volleyball is an indoor sport. We would operate volleyball right now the same as basketball with no fans. You know, all the protocols we put in place for basketball have worked really well. The consistent hand sanitizing, mask break area far away from the court. Ours is actually in the hallway. And it's worked really well. The mental health of the kids, I think, is first on our list. And the kids who have gotten a chance to participate in some of these after-school activities, I think really have benefited. We're trying to roll out a few more after-school activities away from sports with a theater production and some outdoor activities in the next couple of weeks, including a small number of kids snowshoeing and things like that, before we roll out some indoor after-school activities to get the kids a little more engaged in activities. You know, if you have questions, Josh or I are happy to answer them, but you know, really we're just hoping to get those 2 sports off the ground in the fall. And then that season would run like the middle of March to the end of April. And then the proposed spring season would start May 1st. And we would come back and ask you for permission. The only other thing I would add is that I did have a meeting with Martin Mitzoff from the Board of Health. And he was on board and in favor of us giving kids some more opportunities.
Okay, we have some questions. It'll be Dennis Sears first, then Jeffrey, and then Hannah, and I see Art after that.
I think that Jesse probably answered mine. I think what I was going to ask was whatever happened to the, you know, we agreed as a school committee to move forward in I believe it was basketball, based upon the Martin Mitzoff, our public health officer, was going to be in concurrence with that. I think I just heard Jesse say that Martin's okay with that. Is that correct?
With the fall season, yeah. Last time when I came to you and asked, we got you. I can't remember who, but someone asked, "Have you spoken to Martin yet?" And I told you that I wanted to talk to you as the school committee first. Right. I happened to be in a meeting with Martin last week, and so I talked to him about it because we were in a Zoom meeting, and so I was able to you know talk to him first. So we did a little differently this time.
Jeffrey?
Thanks. Jesse and Coach King, like, thanks for getting basketball off the ground. I voted yes last time, kind of with a bated breath, hoping that it would work out. And it's good to see that the health protocols were followed and everything. Just for our own, you know, education, from the season across the county, has there been any news or anything that where basketball was shut down, or anything that we can learn going into the fall that you might just like, there's new things that we're looking at as, you know, administrating activities that are making it able to make either expand or to do it safer or whatnot?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we have not had any pause in the basketball season. Out of the original 5 schools who are participating, we haven't had any issues COVID related. We've had some issues injury wise, which happens in every season, unfortunately, that we have. And there's been, not for our school right now, knock on wood, but a couple of the other schools have had some ankle injuries, a concussion, things like that. But as far as the COVID related things, the kids have been really, really good about following the rules. Soccer, the first time around wearing masks, the referees had to speak to kids quite a bit about making sure that they kept their masks on properly. We've had very little of that in basketball. The kids have been really good about keeping them on. We're using adults either associated with the team or associated with the school to basically make sure the kids are sanitizing. So a kid will come off the court and there'll be a coach there or a school representative telling the kid to make sure they hand sanitize. I think that's really one of the main reasons that it's gone so well. And certainly with the, at least from our perspective as a school, come fall 2, I think we would probably do what we're doing right now with basketball, which is having a school representative there, taking people's names down, who are guests of each kid, so that we have an accurate record of who's coming in. That's worked really well in basketball, where we know exactly who comes to watch the games. Josh, anything you want to add in terms of when the ADs have met about the safety protocols?
Yeah, I think everyone's just really on board with following all the right things and making sure that, in some cases, like Wacona had a family who had like a party outside, like on New Year's. So they actually held that entire, those 2 athletes out for 2 weeks to be safe. Mount Greylock, their AD recognized that they were huddling too close with their masks kind of down. She held the entire team out for 10 days. So everyone's really making sure that we're following, these protocols and these guidelines and making sure that obviously safety is first. We're not forcing, the issue on kids to play, but we're giving them that opportunity. And like Jesse said, a lot of our kids have, like you said, every time they come in and out of the court, they're hand sanitizing. We tell them to have extra hand sanitizer in their bags when they're at their benches. It's a lot of different, protocols and safety put in place to ensure that, we don't have any hiccups and any, bumps in the road. Like I said, the only time that we've been out is obviously with remote or weather. So it's not, it's nothing that the kids have done. And they understand that too, that if they do mess up or they do the wrong thing, it shuts their season down. So they're really, following the protocols and doing all the right things and understanding how important it is for them. On the another aspect, we did start up our youth practices. We had a couple practices the other day. Same thing, we're following all the guidelines. The kids are getting dropped off. They're coming in, they have their own chairs, which is their locker. We sanitize the balls prior, sanitize the balls after, just doing all the little things. And like I said, I think for a lot of these kids, just seeing them, obviously you can't see them smiling with their mask on, but seeing them light up, doing little things and like that, I think is going to be a huge boost. And, Jesse and I have talked about a lot of other things, and that, if there's a way for us to run it and be safe, and it doesn't have to be just related to athletics, we're on board for anything. It's what can we do and have a plan to do it. And right now we're doing our part to get a plan for athletics, but we would like to see other things being offered as well. So it's not just about us, it's about everyone. So it's every kid has that opportunity. And just to piggyback off that, if anyone's checked out our system, you do have to pay a monthly subscription, but one of the things that we can offer with that camera in the gym now is, like, if we wanted to have a band concert, or we wanted to have anything, we can hold anything and we can show it on that camera. So it's, assembly, a pep rally, things like that is something that we can access for our community, which is great. So, it's kind of a win-win that we, obviously we had to invest the money to get it, but at the end of the day, it's going to do a lot more than just athletics. So.
Just a follow-up, and I think.
Wait. Jeff, I've got a line of 5 people here. Can you hold that until?
I can hold it.
Other people have had a chance. Hannah, your hand is down. Did you change your mind or? Okay. Art?
What about football, Jesse?
So football, I believe, is going to run in fall 2. I believe.
I think it's gonna go off of what our school, obviously, if Beth and Jesse and Martin are okay with allowing our kids, but it's also gonna come down to what Berkshire Hills is doing. So if they're going to offer their athletics, because we co-op with them, then that would, I think we have 5 or 6 kids that participate. They did participate in the fall, obviously getting approval and everything like that. So it comes down to what their school and what our school decides. If we say no, we don't want them, intermingling. But I think we have that kind of relationship where everyone's, Carl's on the same boat as I am, where we understand that our necks are on the line if something goes wrong. So as a partnership with them, we're both making sure we're doing all the right things to ensure kids' safety.
I have one other quick question, Jesse.
Yep.
Are we still following the grade, and if you're not in school, all the same protocols we did when the kids were in school?
Yes. Yeah, the only adjustment we've made is basically in the we only have 7 classes. So normally, kids have to pass 5 of 7 to be eligible to participate. And so now, because there's 6, we're doing 4 of 6. We thought that was the fairest way to do it for the kids, based on the fact that we eliminated 1 class from the schedule because of COVID this year. But we're using all the same protocols. Kids have to be in school, and they have to be academically eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bonnie?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve fall 2, but before making the motion, I wanted to ask, given the distance that some of these schools are that we compete against, what are you guys doing to monitor that kids are keeping up with their academic work, given the amount of time? I understand, they're on buses.
Well, that's another great question. We're only playing Berkshire County teams right now. So it does include a couple long trips to Mount Greylock and Hoosick Valley. The nice thing about the way the seasons are running is the games are so much shorter. We've had a JV game that was done in less than an hour. So we're not having the JV stick around or any team stick around. We're using separate buses. So if the JVs play at 4 o'clock in Mount Greylock and the game's done at like 5 after 5, they're getting on the bus and coming right back. There's no long talks with the coach. There's no waiting around for parents. It's basically get on the bus and come home. So, we had a girls varsity basketball game that was at 4 o'clock a little earlier in the season. And the bus was back on campus in Sheffield at a little bit after 6, like 6:15. So it was in and out. That game was another one that went less than an hour. The kids are doing a good job. There's really less fouling going on, so it's less free throws. Hopefully that remains for the rest of the time we play basketball in high school. But there's not a lot of standing around. There's not a lot of waiting. We get teams in and out quick because everybody wants to not have kids getting together and things like that, as we know just happens naturally when they're social, like after the game. So everybody's been on board.
We know that. Those of us who attend, we know that. So with that, I'd love to make a motion to approve fall 2 as proposed by our principal and athletic director.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Art. Carrie Ann's got your hand up.
Thanks. I just, Jesse, could you tell me, are we playing against Berkshire Hills, or are they not? Where are they at in terms of making these decisions around sports?
Yeah, they're part of basketball. They were part of soccer, cross country, and golf in the fall. I believe they're going to be part of the soccer and volleyball come fall 2. Football, as Josh said, there's still talk as far as exactly what that looks like. And there's talk with the MIA about what that looks like too, about the possibility of maybe a little later start with that. But
so this vote of fall 2 sports, is that for soccer and volleyball and potentially football, or is it just volleyball and soccer?
My thought was to ask for volleyball and soccer because it directly affects us as far as a school. Like, we don't run football. Traditionally, we allow our kids to co-op in their program. You know, that's, I'm not exactly sure. Beth, does our school committee have to say yes for our kids to participate? And do we have to wait for Berkshire Hills to vote before we ask our school committee? I'm not sure.
Think, you know, they have to say yes to whatever we do. And we would have to wait and see what they're going to say. You know, it just depends if our next meeting, I believe, isn't until, is our next meeting March 4th?
Yes.
So if that's the
Yes, it is.
case, I don't know what would be starting prior to that. And, you know, I don't know if you have time.
Yeah, Josh, no one's starting before March 4th, right?
No, our plan is, because we, as ADs and principals, we voted to extend the season a little bit. So for the winter, because like Drury, Pittsfield, Taconic, and Lee jumped in starting next week. A couple of schools are starting next week with a couple adding on at the end. They voted to extend the season till March 19th. We're going to start running practices on March 8th for those fall 2 sports kids. But anyone that's still playing basketball is not obligated to go to, you know, a volleyball or a soccer practice. And how practices would run is it would be 2 or 3 days a week, an hour to an hour and a half, depending. I gotta get an hour and a half in between to obviously sanitize and clean everything, clean the chairs, and make sure I'm doing all those things so that when the next team comes in, we're not, you know, cross-contaminating, we're not doing any of that stuff. I mean, that's a big reason too, I think, why I think fall 2 will be more successful with us running and spearheading it, is because we have control over it as a school. Whereas at some places, because it was a, you know, a kind of a rec league thing this past fall, some organizations didn't follow those guidelines and it was a little helter skelter. So, you know, with us getting the approval, obviously we have more control. And, you know, obviously, you know, we just, like Jesse said, the tracking sheets and everything like that, you know, like we're doing right now for basketball, we'll be doing for soccer. So, you know, if someone shows up with 3 adults, someone's going home. No, we're not letting 3 people come in. We're, you know, as much as it stinks, I think it's more important for us to get these kids playing. And, you know, that's been I think our message and motto to everyone involved.
So I would feel more comfortable just voting on soccer and volleyball. And then we can put it back on football for March 4th, once we know exactly what Berkshire Hills intends to do with football.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? Bonnie, you have your hand up.
I was just going to modify my motion to just include, as requested, volleyball and soccer for fall 2. So Art,
Okay, and Jeffrey?
Second the modified one?
Second.
Thanks for coming back to me. So given that there's more new variants, like what we know about the disease is that there's more variants. Hopefully we'll have herd immunity with adults, but like we don't know how kids are gonna, like when kids are gonna be getting the vaccine and whatnot. Beth, maybe this is more appropriate for you. If we're looking, what you guys implemented is with Martin was like, if there was a problem, you'd have like the circuit breaker to basically just shut it down if we saw a spike or anything. But given that like we're still learning about the disease and whatnot going into the fall, is it possible for you guys to have like a weekly cadence with Martin where it's proactive as opposed to reactive?
He doesn't, he's not, I don't think he's, I think he's been happy with the way we've been running the programs. And as long as we continue to practice all of the protocols that we said we were going to do, I don't think he would tell you that we need it. In his mind, he was perfectly happy with listening to the plans that we've had. And we went through it again for this, how we'd handle it for these seasons. And he gave his blessing. So if anything changes, like if we go out or like when we went out for 2 weeks, then sports shut down. None of that changes. It's how we roll from until, you know, things are different.
And we've had the understanding with Martin since last spring. Like when he's got questions or concerns, he immediately contacts Beth and I, and vice versa. So, you know, I'm confident that if things were to change, we would be ahead of it rather than reactive.
All right, I'm going to call a roll call vote because time is marching on here. Carrie Ann,
No.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Dennis Sears,
Yes.
Art,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Hannah,
No.
let's see, Danil,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. So we have 2 noes and 8 yeses.
Thank you.
Bonnie, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to thank both Jesse and Josh for, it's meant a lot to the kids I've spoken to and the families, and the fact that you view it as putting your own reputations on the line and have handled all of our kids as though they were your own. I really appreciate, and I know that our constituents really appreciate. So thank you very much, Will. And the kids are saying, even if they lose by a lot, they're just happy to be out there exercising and playing. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, thanks for coming
very much.
tonight. The last item D on new business is the SBRSD Anti-Bias and Anti-Racism Action Plan. And Beth, I just wanted to ask you, you've also sent some materials related to this because we had asked you to look at your own goals and the administrative approach as part of our action plan. It's not our work, but we had brought that up during our workshop. So were you planning to present your piece during the superintendent's report, or were you planning to do it in this item?
Well, I think I'm just prepared to talk about it now, but I don't have any expectation because I just sent it that anybody's going to be prepared to talk about it. I'll answer whatever I can, of course, but what I felt was key to a key action to take. And the reason that we put it this way is because we tend to weave the work that we're doing into different reports. So we might be talking, it might be in my superintendent's report one week, it might be part of a curriculum subcommittee meeting, it might be part of what we're doing for professional development. So what this was a compilation of all the things we have done, are in the process of doing, and work that we expect to do in the future to address these issues around anti-bias and anti-racism in support of the work that the school committee is doing at their level with their statement. So this is by no means an end all be all. It's to me, it's a living document that will be updated as we move, but it's all in one place from a lot of different sources, if that makes sense. And I expect to update it. I expect to have additional presentations. I expect that you will have questions and comments on the work that we've done, but I just tried to put the document all in one spot so that we could look at those specific items together and have that be an ongoing place to report what we're doing. If that makes sense.
Okay, so on our referring to our anti-bias action plan, one of the boxes had curriculum, work with superintendent to look at district goals for 21-22 that align, but also we were, no, sorry, where is this? Curriculum alignment with the statement. Beth and administrative staff, we're going to be doing ongoing work, and Beth was going to keep the school committee informed which is, this is what I count as information. So I'm going to go back to the, I think let's go back to the grid. And then if there are questions for Beth or for each other about how we're going along and how we can help each other move forward, I think that'll be the most time economical way of doing this.
What's the grid you're talking about, Jane?
It's the school committee anti-bias, anti-racist action plan, which was in the packet for last meeting, I believe. And I think it's been sent out a couple of times. I happen to have my copy in front of me. But the tasks that we were going to do, I'm going to read them down and see who has what to report. Okay, Dennis? So the first one was exploring land acknowledgement statement, which was Jeffrey and Hannah. We're going to look at that potentially, and they can tell us tonight if they've made any progress or that's an ongoing thing. So either Hannah or Jeffrey can make a comment here. I see Hannah unmuted herself, so I'll recognize you.
Thanks. Yeah, so Jeffrey and I looked into what's generally asked when a group decides to do a land acknowledgement, what's asked by by Indigenous people, and we looked into some local land acknowledgements that have been put into practice. And so we've kind of been working back and forth on a draft, and I think our next step is going to be sharing the draft with members of the Stockbridge Munsee tribe to make sure that the general use of a land acknowledgement and the language we've chosen is appropriate and welcomed by them. And once we've gone there, I think we'll come back to the committee with what we have. I don't know if you want to add anything, Jeffrey.
Yeah, in terms of being sensitive to the tribe, as Hannah said, we need to make it the least amount of work for tribal members to be doing something that is not their, it's not their burden to do the heavy lifting, right? So by us coming with a draft, asking for a blessing, we can come to the school committee and say, like, this has been something that the tribe has approved. And then we can, if there's objections from the school committee, or not objections, but like comments or questions, we can take them in a very precise way back as one other iterative process with the tribe to be less intrusive and more respectful of their time from their members.
We'll look forward to the next steps, and thank you very much for the work you've done so far.
And can I just say one other thing? We should acknowledge Michael Wilcox of Alford spent a lot of time. He's the moderator of Alford.
Oh, sure, right.
He's done one. And I know Hannah has spoken with some other people as well that we probably should acknowledge for helping educate us as well. So.
Thank you. The professional development for the school committee was Hannah and Ginnis, and I just want to, I had recently reminded them, and we discussed it tonight, that the Anti-Defamation League, I hate to say ADL, but I'm going to use it because I think we all know what it is, that I wanted to clarify that we as a committee had thought that we would like to participate in that so that we understand better, we have the same language that the rest of the district has experienced, but that we were going to be seeking additional consultants. Can I just see a show of, can you put your hands up if you think that's what we decided rather than do a motion?
We discussed it, right?
Okay, so that,
yeah.
Because one of the things, yeah, Jonathan's hand is up. One of the things that we might want to do tonight is, if we do want to do the Anti-Defamation League training, we need to reserve some time in April, May, or June, I guess, are the times that are available to us? I'm not sure whether March was also offered, Beth.
March was not, but I think April, May, and June, they're looking, they're pretty jam-packed with training initiatives.
So could I just get clarification on that? And then we'll turn it over to Hannah and Janice to tell us what they've found. Does anybody want to make a motion that we devote, that we have a training session with the ADL?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Danelle has seconded. Okay, so now can we have some discussion about concerns? I see Hannah first, then Carrie Ann, then Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jane. I think that this probably will be a bigger conversation. I see a lot of value in us doing the same training that the rest of the school community has done. So for that reason, I am interested in doing the ADL training. I did come across a lot of concerns and critique about the ADL being used for anti-racism training. So being as that this is already in motion and I'd like to see what the school community has been offered, I want to participate, but I also just want to bring this up as something that we'll need to be aware of moving forward in anti-racism work, maybe creating a rubric for how we choose who to engage with, or, you know, I wasn't around when they were chosen, so maybe that's been done. I don't want to make, you know, I don't know how they were chosen, but it just felt like something I needed to bring up because I did see a lot of the leaders in anti-racism work questioning their the work that they do.
Thank you, Hannah, for bringing that forward. Carrie Ann?
Just was going to say what Hannah did. Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, great. Jeffrey?
Just want to reiterate that the large bulk of the work that's being done on this anti-bias training is student-led. If the adults do not understand the framework to allow the students to do the work that they need to do, it's going to undermine the entire effort that we do. So I think it's extraordinarily important that we invest the time to support them with it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Janice?
A couple of things right off the bat. First of all, I don't think that we have to match what the district is doing exactly. And I know that Hannah and I have been looking at different presenters, possible presenters. We didn't just focus on the ADL.
Right.
Just a point I want to make about that. I think that if we are getting training, who knows, it may be more interesting to get different perspectives. But the second thing I'd like you to consider and think about is look at the way we're phrasing this. To me, it sounds negative. Anti-bias, anti-racism. Why can't we use the vocabulary that I believe the state is using? Inclusion, diversity, equity. Why can't we frame it that way, both in our handbook and maybe in the future? It just sounds better to me. And I'd like you to consider that. And I guess those are the only 2 points.
Anybody else have anything to add to that? So
You'll see that I use cultural proficiency. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can look at all of those things. I think we can use that of just improving our whole culture and way of life. And like you said, diversity, inclusion, equity, all of those ways of phrasing it. I was just going off of the resolution and working from there to try to pull information to support that work.
Yep. Dennis, yours?
I guess one of the things that I'm interested in is that I think before we decide whether we would want to go through some ADL type of training or other types of training, you know, I think it's one of the things that probably not just myself, but others want to know is, so how much time are you talking about?
It's a good question. I think maybe if we can take our temperature on our commitment, our theoretical commitment, and there's two issues up here. One is the idea of knowing better what the school district is going through, but not settling for that as our only approach because other approaches are being sought. I don't think we've tried to be reasonable about our expectations for our volunteers. That is who we are. And I would expect that we're not going to be able to do the ideal immersion several full days retreats, because unless we get very excited and we find that we have time and energy for that, we have to accept what we're capable of doing given the rest of what we have to do in our lives. So I think we don't know what these presenters that Janice and Hannah are looking at, what they might suggest. And I think we could take it as it comes. You know, we have to see how we feel about the work we're doing and how much time we want to dedicate to it. So I'm interested to know tonight what we tell ADL, so we line up some time if we feel we're interested, and invite Janice and Hannah to continue their research in finding some presenters who will give us a different approach and perhaps maybe closer to what we might have picked on our own.
So if I could just share a little bit, I think the ADL is interested in modifying it, giving you a taste of what the students went through and the adults went through, but also could customize it to, you know, some of the work that the school committee is interested in, and sharing that. But again, I feel like it's also not the only framework the district is using. And I want to make sure that you understand that there are other speakers and groups that we are working with as well. So we didn't just subscribe to one way of thinking, right? We're trying to get lots of different ways of thinking.
Thank you for that clarification. Very important.
Yeah.
So, Janice, did you want to say something again?
I did.
Good.
But I forgot.
Oh, no.
Well, we won't leave the topic. What we just need to do now is decide if we want to line up the ADL for April, May, and June for one session of a couple of hours. Oh, you remembered?
Yes, I did. You triggered it. I understand about time limitations. I don't really, because I'm retired. I have time. But however, it seems to me that it makes sense that at least we should commit to more than just one session.
Yeah.
That, you know, because the work is important, and in just one session, it's just not.
Are you talking about one session with ADL or one session totally of everything?
No, I'm talking in general, with whomever we choose, but it should be more than just one session. It was one of the questions that Hannah and I sent out to you guys to give us some direction, and we didn't get an answer.
Oh, I don't think I got the question.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm
so we can get the answer. You can get the answer tonight. I think that if we in this motion about having ADL come for a session, do we want to? I'd like to see if we can vote on whether we want to do that.
Jane, just point of clarification though, I didn't frame the motion as for one session. I said the ADL training. I'm amenable to how it's structured, whether it's in multiple shorter sections, so it's not as intrusive on people's schedules.
Okay.
I'm amenable to that. To Janice's question, I think I expressed support to meet multiple times on this and maybe take it in more bite-sized chunks so it can accommodate people's busy set schedules, but that's me speaking personally.
Any other discussion before we vote on bringing in ADL? Carrie Ann?
I'm just wondering if we can't hear from Janice and Hannah on what seems like maybe the other options, or if that would be helpful to sort of know what's in front of us.
Well, I don't think we're doing an either or thing, Carrie Ann, but if you'd like to hear more, it's not an either or. It would be a both. And maybe more than both. We're talking about ongoing things over months and months and months. This is not, a crash course and then it's over.
Sure. I'm just also in terms of people's capacity, if then the capacity becomes an either or, if some of the options that are presented are larger time commitments. I just don't know what's involved in each one to be able to I just don't have enough information, I guess.
Okay, so I think we could ask for Janice and Hannah to just let us hear a little bit about what they know so far before we vote, so you feel fully informed.
Anna?
Yeah, I can share. I think Janice and I have both identified a few potential trainers. I spoke last week with Dr. Warnham, who I'm particularly interested in because she has a lot of experience in working with people in education specifically, and she's worked with school committees. I'm waiting to hear back from her, so I don't have more specific information to share with all of you yet, but she was going to kind of get back to us with a scope of services that she could offer and could kind of tailor toward our needs. She is also presenting next week through MASC. It's possible that some of you are familiar with her. I think she presented last year. I know Janice had found some other options also. It is a little tricky because there's high demand for this kind of work right now. But I guess the good part of that is that if we're committing to do this in an ongoing way, we're not necessarily looking for a workshop next month. We can kind of be looking at who we want to engage in the long term too. I don't know. Do you want to add anything, Janice?
Yes, a couple of things. One is that we shouldn't think that we have to do this year before the end of the semester. I mean, we could spread this out into next year. So it doesn't have to be something that is done quickly. And the second thing is that I will be I'm being trained on this thing from various sources. I just want you to know. Vim is having a session, so I will be listening to a speaker there. Then both Hannah and I have registered for that MASC session that's coming up, and we will hear another speaker. And then I listened, so this is just identifying resources, by the way, because it's good to know what we're getting. I mean, to experience it in some way, that's helpful. So we are going to participate in sessions where we can hear possible presenters. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, are we committed to getting somebody close to this area?
Not necessarily.
Okay, all right, that's good, because that's fine, all right? It's more guidance for us. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I think that.
Questions for us?
Jeffrey?
Trying to unmute an emoticon. So like Janice, like I agree, like we don't have to wrap it up with a bow by the end of the school year in terms of our training that should be ongoing, in my personal opinion. One thing that I do think is important though with the ADL training though, is that that is an ongoing project and there is a time sensitivity that if the adults around the children are not are aware of their own biases, they can undermine the work that the kids are already doing. And I think that would be a shame if we do that. So I do think like in terms of the ADL, we should do that this spring and at least tie that up. And then whatever we look at moving forward, I'm not opposed to, but.
So let's take a vote here. If people aren't comfortable making a commitment to ADL at this point, there's no pressure here. I just would like, if there is an interest, we might as well get on their calendar. And actually, maybe we'd have more flexibility to tell them when we want to do it because we have time and see if there's an opening. And I anticipated it would be like a workshop session that we have from time to time, probably 2 or possibly 3 hours tops. All right. So, Charles, did you want to say something?
Would it be all right if I just added something before you make this decision?
Of course.
That I think is relevant. And thank you for letting me give my 2 cents here. Hannah expressed concerns earlier about the selection process for ADL, and I hear that, and I just thought it's worth knowing. I would before you vote, I would like to know more about what those what those concerns are, because too, we as a district, as a professional staff, have now invested and are working with some incredible trainers. And I'm not sure to what extent maybe you know about Danica Munso Brown or the ADL facilitators who led the training for us. And before you decide to go with someone else, and honestly, I think this is wonderful that you're participating in it regardless of who you decide to go with. But I wouldn't, I mean, without knowing exactly what the concerns are and specifically knowing what you do or don't know about the ADL training that we participated in, which was obviously, in my opinion, productive and effective and so on. I wouldn't want you to miss the opportunity to also work with someone who's willing and able to work with us and is doing anti-racist training. And then just a quick note about the language. We're in a marketplace of language, right? Definitions are constantly negotiated and language evolves. However, in our training, a specific part of it was that the definitions of terms like anti-racism, the actual words we use, are very relevant. And that's a part of the training. So I just wanted to answer that question earlier about what kind of language we use. It is very important. And part of establishing a baseline is coming together with a consensus around what terms, isms, what they mean, et cetera. And ADL does a wonderful job, has done a really good job with that. That's all. Thank you.
I don't know about Hannah, but I'd like to respond. First of all, I think that the issues are different in terms of the ADL. I think that the issue of the trainers and their ability and so on is one thing, and that's not what we're talking about. At least that's not what the articles that Hannah and I have read refer to. It's the leadership of the ADL and some of the decisions that they have made. At least that's my understanding of the problem. So,
right. Yes, thank you. So historically, not so much as what we participated in more recently and who we participated with. And that's just what I wish you knew more about in order to make this decision. That's all.
Okay. So that's, I'm sorry.
Can we vote, Janice, because it's 7:45 and we've got a lot more on our agenda and we're not finished with this topic by any means. And we're going to be hopefully having workshop time, so we won't feel pressured by the business we have to do. So if you don't feel I'm being unnice to you, I'd really like to have a vote.
It's okay. I'll talk to you later.
Sure.
No, I'm honestly, Jane, it's fine.
You're kidding me. I see.
Yes.
Okay, Art.
Yeah.
Would this be at night or during the day?
I think we can decide. It's going to be when we can be there. And obviously, if somebody can't come, they can't come. but we're going to do everything we can to have it as convenient for everyone. All right, so I'm going to do a roll call vote. What we're voting on is whether to go ahead and set up a first session with the ADL, either April, May, and June, or June, depending on our availability.
Is the
Okay,
chair making a motion?
there was a motion put out and seconded, and I'm just reviewing it
Oh, okay.
because it was made so long ago. I think people don't remember what it was. Jeffrey made the motion. So Janice?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, too bad.
I'll come back to you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just, yeah. Thank
Okay. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Dennis Sears?
No.
Art Pataki?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Bonnie? You're muted, Bonnie.
Yes.
Carrie Ann?
Yes.
Danil?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I'll be Jane, yes. So I'm going to do you last, Janice.
I'm last. Yes.
Okay. So we'll look at the calendar, see what our meeting schedule is, and get back about dates that might be good for everybody before we set anything up. Okay. All right. And so we'll be looking to hear more from Hannah and Janice with their research. And I would encourage anybody who has ideas to refer them to the two of them to follow up on. Okay, and I've read Beth's document because I set aside a couple hours today, but I think Beth's invited anybody who, after you read it, to get back to her with questions, and we can talk about it further once you've had a chance to review. Okay, so now we're going on to item 9, which is the school committee handbook, which, thanks to early input from Danil and then from Dennis and then from Bonnie and our workshop last spring, I think we have possibly a finished product here. And there's not a vote on here about whether to accept it or not. But I think it might be good to make it official that this is our handbook. If people have not had a chance to read it and be happy with it, I'll be disappointed that we don't have a vote tonight, but I don't want to twist any arms. But I'm very appreciative of everybody's work and also the patience of the new members who we were trying to hurry to have it ready before you came on board, but now we all have it and we can share it with our community and teachers and parents. It's all out there. And it is, we can make amendments to it as we go along, like changing the name of our statement, etc. So anybody have any questions? Is there anybody prepared to make a motion to accept this? Jeffrey?
I had one question, and I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second. Just with on page 4, we're looking at the regional school district thing, right?
We're looking at
the handbook. The
You're
handbook.
looking at the handbook, school committee
Sorry,
handbook.
I was being
Okay.
inarticulate.
That's okay.
It's not the first time. On page 4, like when we're looking through the Berkshire Regional School District is committed to, is that something that we wrote in this, or we took that from language from like our vision? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. All right. I think I just saw one typo on page 6, chair of the school committee. in
Oh, yeah,
bullet
there's a
7.
P instead of an F. I
Yeah,
mean, P instead of an O.
yeah, P instead of an O. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Um,
Jane, also, I had said to you, I didn't have a chance to see if the table of contents still lines up. with the-
Oh, okay, thanks, Bonnie. We'll have Lynette help us out with that. Dennis?
Yes, I would personally like to have another meeting before we vote on this because I really have not had time this week since I got it on the agenda to really kind of go back and look at it compared to, what it was as it was being developed. And I'd really like to have that. So I personally would like to see us defer voting on this until the next meeting.
All right, Janice?
Me?
Yeah.
Page 4, a clarification.
Yeah.
Says character by. I just want to clarify that last bullet where it says develop respect and responsibility for self and community. And community here is being used in the most general term. So it means anybody, not really like school community or community in general. Is that?
Well, it's a while since this is a 3-year-old document and I can't really respond to that. Do you think we should say school community or greater community or sort of modify that community word?
I don't know. What was troubling me was going from self to community. And I'm sorry, I just didn't know. I didn't know what that community referred to.
Okay.
That's all. And again, I bring up the point that when we talk about my favorite topic, anti-racism and anti-bias resolution, that I would prefer a more positive way of expressing that.
Okay, so we have an idea of changing the title of our statement and defining community. And we have at least one member who would like more reading time. Jeffrey?
And number 15.
Oh, wait.
Page 15, please.
Yeah.
The last one, all of a sudden, not remain silent. Once again, I think that couldn't be turned around and made up in a positive way. Respond or something. Just comments. I promise not to say anything else tonight.
Let's see, I've lost track here.
Page 15.
No, I see 2 hands up of people who've both spoken, so I don't know whether your hands are still up or.
No, you called on me, but then Janice said another point, so I was quiet.
Okay, go ahead.
And Janice, I hope if you have other things to say, you say. We're benefit from it. Given that the spirit, part of my question about was some of these language that was adopted earlier, like our core values. If we're going to go into the editing of it, I saw something that bothers me, but I'm willing to table that for another item. But I was just looking at in excellence when we're talking about encouraging our students to be involved, active learners who work hard. And I think work hard is a weak platitude. I think we need to be more specific and precise, and maybe diligence instead of work hard. Or work diligently. But I'm happy to not push that now. So if people like the structure, maybe we come back and sections can be re-edited or something, especially if they were.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that because some of these things were written before you were on the board or came up early in your tenure here when we went over norms. And we created a lot of documents and we didn't wordsmith them, and we were new people and we have new ideas. So if you like I wasn't paying attention to rewriting every statement because that seemed overwhelming, just collecting the ones that we had. And now we know some of them we may want to change. So we can edit as we go along. Or if you're not comfortable voting for it as is, then we'll wait until you, we'd have to have another workshop group to do that because we don't have business meeting time for it. Dennis Sears?
That's basically what I was going to suggest, Jane, that I think that we all probably would benefit from having a full meeting just dedicated to, okay, if you want to think about making changes in it, let's do it then as a separate meeting, as in where we can kind of get into some of this editing that's already raised its head.
Yeah, my only concern here is we had a workshop meeting almost a year ago to commit ourselves to do this. And it took us a year to get this far. I'm not impressed with our speed, I just have to say. So it's your document and I want you to be happy with it. And if you want to put the time into it, let's do it. But I don't think it's professional of us to put it off very long because we've already taken quite a while. Bonnie, would you like to have any input on this based on your close read of it recently?
Let me get this open again. This is, wait, yeah, I'm unmuted. My suggestion would be, in most cases, what I did is, if it was a previously written document that was adopted by the school committee, I didn't change it.
Right.
I was just going through it, editing. I really do think if people are saying now that they are committed to reading the whole document and looking at changes, why not just put it on the next agenda?
I don't want to do, I'm happy to set up a workshop meeting. We can't afford to do this kind of work at a business meeting because I'm not, we're already coming to 2 hours and I'm not a fan of long meetings myself because we don't do our best work.
Well,
So I'll be happy
it's already too long, but what I'm suggesting is I'd be happy if people, if they go through and they say, and send to me, these are the, couple of questions I have. Maybe we could decide whether we need to have a workshop meeting, because there may be people who say, well, this is the only place where I have an issue. And the issue is the negative tone of our anti-bias, going to what Jenna said, statement, and that we should address that before we include it in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think most people have not had the time to read the whole document.
All right, so I'm going to suggest the people who have particular pages and issues to send them to me. I will look through them and make a determination if there's enough work that we need to have a workshop meeting, or if there are particular documents that we need to revisit to switch in at a later date. And I will table the motion to, I don't know what the proper thing is, whether we withdraw the motion to vote on it, or we just say tonight we are having a discussion.
Just table it. Just table it. Either table it to a time to be determined or table it to a specific meeting.
I'm going to say table it to a time to be determined because we don't know the degree of work that has to go into it. And then let's vote on the tabling. Dennis Sears.
Do you need a second for the tabling?
Not sure.
Yes, you do.
I'll second.
Okay. Dennis Sears,
Yes.
Art,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Janelle,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Carrie Ann,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Jane, yes. Okay.
I
Now,
could have avoided an all-nighter on this. Okay.
yeah, well, now we're going to the business with district member towns. Carrie Ann?
Thank you, Jane. I just wanted to say that back in the anti-racism action plan, we didn't have an opportunity to talk about the work of looking at the policy manual. I'm happy for that to. It's fine for it to wait till the next meeting, but I just wanted to bring it up that we have met and been doing work, and that we can share with the group at a later point.
Thank you for the update. I was aware of that and I went on too fast. So yes, indeed, there is a thought process going on about how we might approach the policy issues, and we're looking forward to hearing from you at the next meeting. Okay. Is there anybody who has, I don't have any update on, well, let's see, on the regional school district planning board, the Lucy Prashker and Peter Taylor have been going around to member towns asking for the $15,000 to be put on the warrant in each town. I think they're almost done going around making that ask. And they've been received very politely, and it appears that select boards are taking it under advisement. So there's been no major meetings since over the 2 weeks since our last time bringing this up. And is there anybody on the planning board that wants to say anything not related to the letter? Bonnie?
Yeah, the only thing that I did want to add is the fact that Sheffield asked that Lucy put together a template for the warrant, and she agreed to that. And the 2 sessions that I attended were quite positively received. One of the towns said, absolutely, they're ready to put a warrant item on their annual meeting.
I do want to just add that,
and finishing, if all the work that Beth put into this on the grant proves productive, it's clear that the towns will not, Lucy made clear, be asked for $15,000. They will be asked for less.
Jeffrey?
Keep on trying to unmute my emoticon. First off, Bonnie, thanks for taking the time to craft this. This was not an easy task, and I think you did a really good job, and thanks for listening to feedback. There's just one thing that kind of just jumps out at me that I didn't catch the first time, which is in the last paragraph. It just says, as we all know, the 24 of us plus our superintendents have taken a test that we have defied the excellent efforts of many good, blah, blah, blah. It's speaking as if everybody on our school committee is on the regional school district planning board. And I just suggest that we find alternative language that it's like, as we all know, the 24 members of the regional school district planning board, which includes some of our members and our superintendents. It may just be more precise in that as opposed to including that. That's my only recommendation, but I think it's in general, you walk the fine line of collaboration, but kind of strong criticism, which I think was the spirit of the vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would help a clarification.
Well, if
Because
you
there are
look-
two us's. There's us as that, the 24 of us on the committee.
I
there is
fixed
a-
it already.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Done.
the second sentence in the last paragraph
Right.
says we have already, especially the 5 SBRSD school committee members on the RSDB and us devoted many hours. As we all know, the 24 planning board members
Yeah,
instead of us.
yeah. Okay, sounds great. Jeff, you're an amazing catcher of these things, I must say. I can always rely on you not to let anything by. It's very
Don't
nice.
call me a copy editor though.
No, no,
My
it's
wife will laugh hysterically.
no, you're a thought editor, which is more
I
important.
just have to thank really Hannah and well, Beth and Jane, who also gave a comment, and then Jeff's strong comments. I think many of us would have loved to have gone a lot further with this letter, but as Jeff just pointed out, it's that balance between what we want to say and what we feel we want to convey.
All right, so I think we need a motion to send this letter as amended. Do I have a motion?
I
So
so
moved. Janice.
Wait.
whatever.
Okay, so Jeffrey and Janice seconded.
I'll second. Janice can have the motion.
Okay, Janice made the motion, Jeffrey is seconded. Any further discussion? All right, voting. Dennis Sears,
Yes.
Art,
Yes, but you have to take one of the T's out of my name.
oh yeah, okay, that's, okay, whoopsie. Janice,
Sorry.
Janice,
I said yes.
oh, sorry, Hannah,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes, but take out the T, extra
okay,
T.
Danelle,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Jane, yes. Okay, the letter with these corrections will go out shortly.
Jane, you skipped me.
Where are
Sorry.
you?
I'm here. I just turned off my camera for a bit because I have to move around.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why I missed you. Would you please, what's your vote?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Jane, just a clarification.
Yeah.
Are you going, because the way I got it as a PDF, I can't edit in it. How do you want to proceed to get that one change? Well, 2 changes. Are you going to convey those to Lynette? Do you want me to?
I would like you to because you wrote them down.
Okay. Will do.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going on to subcommittee reports, which we may have quite a few. So I'll start with finance.
We met, we reviewed budgetary, this was just last week. And we had presentations from the different departments of expenses, capital expenses, right? Not capital expenses, but the operating expenses from last week. And it's a preliminary draft of budgets, good questions. And we're waiting for the next report. Anything else you want to comment on that, Beth? Okay. But the faculty did a really good job presenting.
Yes, and it was mercifully shorter than usual. Buildings and grounds and technology.
We haven't met. I don't know if we're gonna discuss the other or not. I
Not
guess
right
not.
now.
So, okay.
No.
All right, I'm
Okay.
all set.
All right, so we have community relations and public schools advocacy.
Yep. So we met twice already. Once was last night, which was very productive. And we did want to bring something to the full school committee to vote on, so we can kind of move forward with our title and our purpose. So if I could read to you a little motion we voted on as a subcommittee last night, as a little addition to how our makeup will be going forward. The Community Outreach and Advocacy Subcommittee will include members of faculty as well as parental representatives as determined by the subcommittee members who will not count towards a quorum nor have voting authority. We wanted to include in our group, because it was so successful in past years with this subcommittee, different members of the community that can provide a different outlook and just serve as advisory members in going forward with our work for the community.
I'm so moved.
Second.
Okay, so any questions for Danelle about this definition of the community relations and public schools advocacy members?
How many people do you want to bring in as advisors?
We're leaving it flexible, but I think what we would like to, hang on, let me grab the original so I get this right. Unless Bonnie, you have it off the top of your head.
I do.
Okay.
We'll do it the way, Jeff, when you were on there, if you remember, we had a parent representing the upper school, middle and high school, a parent who for the elementary school, and that would be a rotating one. So each of the elementary schools would be represented. And then through working with the SBREA to have a representative from the upper schools and one from the elementary. And that could be a teacher or staff member as appropriate. So not more than that. The most it would be 4 additional people, though others can obviously, since they're open meetings, attend. So that answer? Yes, Jeff answers. That's a nod I got there. Okay.
I think it should be mentioned that the reason that we didn't specifically say the number or who they were was to allow for a little bit of flexibility and make it less cumbersome. There was a hand up somewhere. I don't see it anymore.
Here, I'll throw my hand up again. Has there been people who've expressed interest in participating? Or how are we going to recruit people in? Are we going about it with a mind towards diverse voices on the board, the advisory?
The way we did it in the past is we turned it over to the principals to go to their parent councils as the basis for outreach to the community of parents. And the way we did it with the faculty was to turn to their representative organization, the SBREA. And we've done nothing so far in terms of that outreach, because basically we just came up with this this change. And that's the motion that Danelle just brought before us.
Just speaking towards the experience I had on that subcommittee, I think it's good to have non-school committee voices sometimes to poke, you know. So like, I understand why you guys are moving in this direction.
All right, we ready to vote? The motion is to have advisory members on a school committee board, subcommittee who don't have a vote and do not count for the quorum. All right? Okay, Dennis Sears,
Aye.
Art,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Janice,
Yes.
Danil.
Yes.
I see you, Carrie Ann.
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Jane, yes. Okay. Very good. Negotiations, I think we don't
The
have any.
only thing I have to report for negotiations is to Jane, ask you if you actually did sign and has the final approved both sides, Beth, been
Jane
put forward?
signed. I'm not sure the SBREA has officially signed yet, but I'm sure that will happen. I'll have to connect with Lynette.
Okay, thank you. That's my whole report.
All right, superintendent evaluation has yet to meet and executive minutes better get hustling, but we haven't done anything for a while.
Yeah, Jane, really quickly, I know I have to call that meeting. Who's on that committee again?
I am. I'll tell you,
Dennis.
I am, and let's see. just,
Dennis, right?
I'll let you know. There's one other person. But I'm not gonna look for
I
it.
had said I would do it, but I don't remember whether somebody else said ahead of me.
Okay, I'll let you know, Jeffrey. I've got it somewhere.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. We're doing business. All right, I'm not gonna do a chairman's report because I don't think anybody will listen, so I'm done. What about you, Beth?
You skipped policy.
Oh, we skipped.
Policy.
Oh, yeah, we can't skip policy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a little note next to that you had a couple of ago. All right, go ahead, Dennis. Sorry.
Well, I have to ask the superintendent if she got my email today and whether or not the copies that I sent her are something that she can show. Otherwise, this will be pretty short. We did have a recent policy meeting where we went through several policies, and one of them is a policy that's an existing policy that's so short that we can introduce it on first read tonight by me just reading it. Okay. Basically, this is a policy. I'm gonna not spend your time telling you the war stories of something that goes back for some period of time, but basically this is a policy EEAG, student transportation in private vehicles. We, for a long time, have had exactly the same policy as that recommended by MASC. And what we've done basically is changed that to where we basically are now going to have a it's actually one sentence policy that says only school buses or school-owned vans will be used for the transportation of students participating in co-curricular or extracurricular activities, period. The old policy, which is still, you can go look it up on the district website, under policies. As you can see, it's somewhat longer, and it provided for here's how we would handle private vehicles, blah, blah, blah. So that is one that is done. This is the first read. And let's hope that that's acceptable as a first read. And I will send you this one and the others that are a little too long to read that we successfully passed in the last policy committee. I'll just send those to every member that's here, and then you can look at them. And then in the next meeting, when we have the second read, is when we can then go into any discussion. But I wanted to make sure we got this one definitely through first read, because this is one that, you know, has been hanging around for a long time. And that's enough for policy for tonight.
And Dennis, my apologies for skipping you. It was not intentional.
I did not take it personally.
Oh, great. Okay, so now we're going down to Beth's superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. I really just want to talk about what I'm working on next is a letter basically to all of you, all district stakeholders, which will be an update to the school committee, families and faculty and staff, which will include information that I received the Thursday before vacation, which was on new transportation guidance, new guidance from the CDC, and also an invitation to revisit the DESE guidance. There is a lot to read and sift through, including opinions that have been given on what superintendents need to make better decisions, which would have been helpful since last year. But with that said, I'm really trying to dig into as much information as possible when putting this together. I still call this kind of remaining optimistically cautious, and there's no other way to say it. But what is recommended is that we start after vacation with a survey of our families based on the guidance that, the new guidance that was received, that would be issued by Friday, the 26th, to gauge how many students would participate based on a phased-in return to school aimed, I'm just randomly shooting for a deadline of mid to late March with appropriate social distancing, mask protocols, et cetera, but the possibility of the relaxed, and I'm using that word tentatively, guidance that was received as a result of all this new guidance from the state and other officials. So we need to take the pulse to see how many people would think about returning in a phased-in approach, and then start to work with the faculty and staff, the wider community, to come up with a plan depending on what those outcomes look like. So there's a lot to take in there, and there's still a lot to read, but that is the work that is on our plate right now. It's not, I wish I felt more definitive, but I'm gonna do some homework and I'll share with everyone, and then together we'll make the decision like we did when we talked about reopening. And the next piece besides that would be the FY22 budget is going to take up a tremendous amount of time, obviously, between now and our next meeting date, which is the public hearing on March 4th. As a full school committee, there's a finance committee meeting next Thursday night, which will be our first look at the revenues and expenditures and the fund balances available to us, which will create that first picture of what the FY22 budget could look like. I'd like to get a regional roundtable, my superintendent's regional roundtable together in those next weeks as well. And I, again, am open to attending the finance committee meetings or select board meetings in every community to talk about the budget once we get it put together. Alfred already has me on the books, so I'm saying that publicly here, and I will say that to the community stakeholders who participate in the regional roundtable. I always offer that as an opportunity for the community. So that's all I'm going to say tonight, unless anyone has some questions.
Jeff, wanna stand up?
Yeah, really quickly, Beth, what is our response rate on these surveys about COVID from families? Has it been like high?
Quite high.
Really high?
Quite high, like around 300, probably.
Out of 356 families or so, or?
Oh, no, you're probably, because it depends. I would say you're probably closer to, I mean, we have 700 students, so, you know, I don't know, 450, 500 is families, you know. But I think that's a pretty good turnout compared to what I saw in prior years. But there's no good way to do this. You have to keep having those community conversations around what would you think if, just to give us some guiding direction. As we
Maybe if it's shared via Facebook, like if it's a survey, like a Survey Monkey or something like that, maybe we can leverage our networks and try to have it reshared and try to hit people a different way as well, just because the more data, probably the better for you, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Beth, would you want any help from the Community Relations and Advocacy Subcommittee on this, or that's not appropriate for them?
I don't know that we're there yet. I think a quick survey, we've done several of them to kind of dipstick where people are, and people have been responsive. It's not, you know, I don't see it being longer than a 5 or 6 question survey if, you know, these specific circumstances were in place. And, you know, just as a starting point, and then we can engage various stakeholders. I think, you know, I don't have a problem having discussions or community forums as we start talking about that, if that's the way the committee wants to go. But this is just that quick, what do you think about this? You know, a couple of implications. And I will also share the updated guidance, so they have that as a framework to look at as well.
Great, thanks.
Carrie Ann has their hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Beth, is it helpful at all for school committee members to be present when you go to talk to select boards if they take you up on that offer?
I love company at all of those things. So sure. I think it's always good. I've many occasions, usually the representative from that community being present is very helpful.
Well, I'm happy to volunteer and help in any way I can.
Thank you. Thank you. We will take you up on that for sure.
Great. And now what we've all been awaiting all evening, drum roll.
Motion to adjourn.
No.
Our
sorry.
Student Services is going to speak.
Sorry, Sandy.
You're going to have to go in timeout, Bonnie.
Oh, boy. Well, good evening, everybody. I sent a report. I hope you received it.
Yep.
I just wrote it today. But my whole goal was to provide you some information about our revenue sources for special education. I talked about this last week at our Finance Committee meeting, and I'm hoping that this information is helpful to all of you. I thought I would just see if you had any questions, or maybe you didn't have time to review it. I'm happy to go through it quickly, but I know the time.
I thought it was a great report, basically. You know,
Thank you.
I was encouraged by all that source of funds.
I think it's important for you to know all of that.
We're going to need it. Yeah.
I know special education is a big cost, but there's also revenue associated with it. So it's important for you to know all of that.
And I think just kind of like thinking further and set an expectation with the towns, it's great to see the work that you did with the money. But what is not going to be probably in the following year to be able to get ahead of that, if we're going to see because we're seeing increased funding in this year.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to get ahead of that, and maybe COI kind of being proactive in how we communicate out.
Mm-hmm.
But
the sources that you see there are pretty standing, with the exception of the 298 grant, which they had removed and brought back this year. But those other fund sources like Circuit Breaker has been in existence and funded at a 70 to 75% level for, the past I don't know, 12 years anyway. You know, special education increments remains, and actually our 240 grant decreased this year, but we've been right about 260, 270 for a few years, with the exception of last year, we were at 320. So I can anticipate, unless something majorly drastic happens, that it would be similar. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just put a link in there regarding our kindergarten screening process, and we just updated our dates today. There was a typo, so if that's wrong in there, it's been corrected on the website. So, and that's all I have for tonight.
Sandy, I'm wondering if you could speak a bit about if this amount is meeting the needs of the district.
I guess, can you tell me more about what you mean by that?
Well, so if this is the funding, and some of it you're saying is standard, and to Jeff's question is in terms of thinking to the future, I'm just wondering if, given this amount of funding and what the financial picture is for special education at this point, if you feel like it's meeting the needs of the district.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the cost, you know, can be high for special education, but given the general funds and the number of special education students who are school choice students, and the level of reimbursement that we have for circuit breaker and the funding sources, I think we've been able to really manage having a solid program and services for our students. We haven't run into any big needs. We try to be very thoughtful about how we program, and trying to keep our children and students in district. That's incredibly important in building programs that can meet the needs of students who might have to have their needs met elsewhere. So I really feel like we've gotten a good plan going for how we can utilize our funding really thoughtfully. So far it's worked.
Great, thank you. And are there, you mentioned students that are choicing in to our district with special needs. And I'm not certain if in the enrollment report it necessarily separates out those students.
No, it doesn't separate it out, no.
Are we considered as a desirable district to choice into for special needs students?
I've been told that. I think we try to be very, again, thoughtful about how we program for students and making sure all needs are met. So I've heard that before. And the last I checked, which was a couple of months ago, about 24% of the students who choice into the district receive special education services. So it's a pretty good number.
I see Bonnie and then Hannah.
Yes. First, I do want to say in response to Carrie Ann's question, yes, I've heard that a number of occasions, people saying that we're known for our services here and they have choiced in and they travel a distance to make sure their children get what's offered through Sandy's programs. My other is a question about, as it's a tangent to that, have you planned on taking out ads in the shopper's guide in terms of, you know, the enrollment opportunities like we've done in the past? And do we do any other outreach? I know at one point through different, you know, pediatricians' offices, et cetera, we've had information about our school district. Is that being done as well?
Yes, the answer to both of those questions is yes. It will be in the shopper's guide, and if it hasn't been already. And yes, we did send the information to the pediatrician's offices.
And we did put it out on social media.
Is there anything short that, along with my other article, I could submit to the Sheffield Times?
Yeah, sure. I could probably, I mean, you could definitely put the ad, I don't know, or information about
Yeah,
the
so
registration process there.
if you had something small
Sure.
that I
I'll
could
write
just, yeah, I need it unfortunately, by Monday. You
Yeah,
say,
we have it early next week, I think, deadline.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
send it to me too, Sandy. I'll put it in the New Marlboro paper.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome. I'll do it tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Hannah,
Well, I can be quick because it's redundant, but just anecdotally, I've heard the same thing from some friends who I think they moved out of this school district and trialed the district they moved into, and school choice their kid right back because of the really good services they were getting here.
all
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, so last item is future agenda items, and I have one about a discussion about the naming of the holiday in the fall. And please feel free to contact me or Beth with ideas that you have. For the next meeting is going to be exciting because we'll be having our hearing about the budget. And those of you who haven't been to a budget meeting, it's really cool because Beth does a really amazing job of putting together everything.
No
And
pressure.
I will, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a
Second,
second from Art. All right, now I know you don't really want to leave, but let's see how many people are ready to stop. Janice?
Just one point.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but on that future agenda items, I promise not to talk, but I can't hold it.
yeah.
Could we discuss the role of individual members? You know, when we speak to others on behalf of the committee, what are the limitations? Clarification.
Oh, wow. It's in the handbook.
In the handbook. I rewrote that section.
So, okay.
Okay, you know what I need to do is I'll talk to you and the other two new members who have not had as much training, and I can make that clearer to you. Okay? All right, so where were we in this voting?
Janice was the first one you called on.
Oh, yeah.
about adjourning.
Are you ready to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, Hannah.
Yes.
Dennis Sears.
What was this session supposed to be that it was 16 executive session? Did we forget to do something?
No, that's only there in case we need it,
Okay,
which we don't.
I vote we adjourn.
Art,
yes.
Bonnie,
Yes, and Charles and Jesse, thanks for sticking it out.
Carrie Ann,
Gosh,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
yes.
Danil,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Jane. Yes, I think this was a really thoughtful and interesting meeting, and I'm glad I was there. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Oh.
Thank you.